Hi, welcome to the Sunday morning show. Um, Starting off a little bit late this morning because my Streamlabs OBS somehow got blocked by my administrator. Like my computer blocked it somehow, and even uninstalling it and reinstalling it doesn't change anything, so I gotta figure that out. Right now I'm using regular OBS, and it's very similar, but there's also just stuff that's missing. For example, I don't see a chat function. There's no alert function or anything like that, like you would get with Streamlabs. But on the upside, I can keep chat in this window here, which should be fine. So yeah, that's what we're working with today. It is what it is. It's not going to make too much of a difference, I believe. And also it looks a little bit cropped as well, but that's fine. It was kind of a slow news week this week. Especially compared to the week before. It was a pretty slow news week, and I haven't really been on social media, or like this week I wasn't really much on social media. And I kind of just needed to relax a little bit because this job hunt has been very stressful for me, and I really don't know what's going on. Like, I have all the qualifications necessary to get a decent job. So I don't know. I even applied to Trader Joe's, for God's sakes, and they said it would take like 3 weeks to continue the process. So we'll see. I've been applying to so many jobs in nonprofit education, man. Like, that's the field I want to be in, but right now is not a great time, I guess. It's like, if it's not before the school year, you're kind of asked out in this kind of business. So I'm thinking I just gotta do whatever I can do. Been thinking again also about I've also been thinking about moving again. The thought keeps coming through my mind, just because like, I know I can eventually get a job in New York City at some point, but it's just, everything's just so expensive. It's hard to justify staying in New York City, even though my friends are here and there's so much cool shit to do. I think it might be better to live somewhere a lot cheaper and then just save for when I go on vacation, and just that's when I can have my fun. And I'm just ready for a more slower paced living, I guess. Anyways, we're gonna get started with the show. First, we're gonna play some new music off of my boy BS's new EP or new album, Satan LOL. So that recently came out this week. So you got 8 tracks there. We've shown the video for Frustration on the show before. and he's got a couple other videos. Moon Bounce and I think Fun is the other one. So those videos are coming. I need to edit together a behind the scenes on the Moon Bounce video still. That's gonna be cool. I actually did a interview with him, and I was like going through. It's a lot of footage. We were talking for like 3 or 4 hours, I think, and there's just so much. There's just so much to go through, and then some of it I'm just not happy with. Where is it? Here's some of it.
Like, got me into this spot. I was there with my first 40cc and my homie Niall. And I found this place where I could rap. At the time, it was about battling, so I still looked at it as this aggressive place where it was an outlet. You know,
I gotta look through it because yeah, I just didn't like. I didn't like particularly my structure of it, and I think I talked a lot. I interjected a lot in a lot of places. I wanted to make it conversational, but I don't know. When I was editing it, I was just like, I don't know if people really want to hear what I have to say. Really, should be more about what BS has to say. So I've been going through that editing, trying to think like, you know, what should I you know, I don't know, I just gotta finish that up. Anyways, we're gonna play Moon Bounce here, and I'll be right back. Oh, this is just a teaser. Okay, this is a teaser playlist of the. See, I don't use Spotify, so this is kind of new to me. So it's gonna play about 30 seconds. So we'll start it up from the beginning here.
Burn the Palo Santo, repeated the affirmation. Take a sip of coffee, that's a vice that you can cultivate. Nice words go iceberg, see if the friendship hull will break. I hate that I just said that, it's so real. But even if I had money, I'd start every day with a plain oatmeal. I'm a little smug, a bit high-strung, obnoxious, drunk. I ain't never been a liar, I ain't no punk. Build my routine, guided pivotal practices, uprooting my confusions with a cold, cynical calculus. This is me, this is my war zone of willpower.
Who is this guy? I'm the nigga that tends to run things. You just running around without shoestrings. It's just that thing that's just so lame. Back up and leave me alone. You just have to do two things. My, what broke rules do to be seen is a damn shame. Yo, I'ma do what I want to. I'ma do what you can't do, what you don't do, and won't you? Shut the fuck up. I'ma do what I want to. I'ma do what you can't do.
Who knows where the night might go? I like to live my life dangerous. Swipe right with my brightness low. Ay. In my fantasies, I always got a moon bounce. We at capacity like what we finna do now.
moon bounce with your titties out. Moon bounce with your titties out. Moon bounce with your titties out. Moon bounce, girl. Moon bounce with your titties out. Moon bounce with your titties out. Moon bounce with your titties out. Moon bounce, girl. Moon bounce with your
Worldview. In the crowd, get you never been more alone. I wear my fuck off like you spray on your fancy cologne. The scent of summer trash lets me know I'm home. If you don't fuck with it, brother, leave it alone. I was on mission, and mission district specific. The day I saw clouds dance and the colors turn into liquids. Take me out west, see the homies that still skate. Out the SF, then see Shorty and Millbrae. Hey, back to that, where there's the will way. Take my purest form and take.
Got Papa Bill like Tony Hawk's first Ollie. Deadass, I give hugs every day like I'm a Molly. Give me bright lights, better lights and bigger noises. The devil's in the details, that's probably why I avoid them. Prefer to stay above it, you can find me where the leaves blow. Right to wrong, approach the key through the peephole. Don't know the ledge, know the sill, and sit still. Then you focus on that window and think on shit you can build. Instead
instead of sweating on how you about to lose them. Plotting plans B through Z and world's best excuses. Take a moment, consider your contributions. Take that.
I'm forgetting my manners. Just wanna get lit, get a drink, and call my grandma. Fuck you loud or we in public. Eat a bag of dicks and then suck it. You a parasite and I'm prepared to fight. You a piece of shit now and you'll be one in the afterlife. But that shit never gives us any answer, so I brushed him off, gave him a cigarette for the cancer. Why you fucking with my good time? Fucking on my high vibe. Why you fucking with my good time?
Can't even see how many people in the chat.
Why you fucking with my... Mentally ill, so I'm always on some sick shit. My mind stays to pop before the kick flip. Going up to the skate park, shit had its benefits. Had friends in big house. Never count your blessings while counting another man's zeros. Simpatico, looking for his pot of gold. If it's in my way, motherfuck you, bro, I guess you gotta go. I could be pragmatic, still know what you do with your lotto, though. I guess it really comes down to how you prefer to deal with your obstacles. I'm rawer than John Belushi, puking out some fresh sushi on your new sneaks. This is my house, bitch, and I'm an animal. I couldn't have any pets. My mom said there was too many animals in the house, so I learned to disrespect with my mandible. So when I take a cookie, no one hears me. Burn the Palo Santo.
Alright, so definitely support my boy BS. You can find it on Spotify, BS on Spotify. I also retweeted this link right here on my Twitter. So you can just head to my Twitter. And it's right there if you want to check it out. Twitter.com/TheMCFaceman. Throw me a follow on there. Also, if you're watching on Twitch, throw me a follow on Twitch. Alright, we're going to get into the news. Like I said, it was kind of a light news week. We'll try to do the best we can with what we got. Last week, we covered a range of topics. One of the comments had pointed out that I had gotten mixed up about the Prime Minister. I confused the Prime Minister of Pakistan with the Prime Minister of India and the Foreign Minister of Pakistan with the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So I got a little bit confused. During that show, I also had mentioned that I'm not really that familiar with Indian and Pakistani politics, so there goes my excuse there. You know, sorry. I'll try to be more accurate. But as I told that commenter, you know, mainstream news makes mistakes all the time, and they're constantly having to retract stories. They constantly put out bullshit all the time. So I think you can forgive me for one time where I got something wrong. In any case,
his optimism, saying, however, he was looking.
So we're talking a bit about North Korea first here. Let's see, this news story. Putin has signed a decree to make Russia's withdrawal from the INF treaty official. Russia continues to insist that they have not been in breach of the treaty despite repeated accusations from U.S. leaders. Daniel McAdams of the Ron Paul Institute joins Scotty Nell Hughes to discuss the development and other U.S. foreign policy blunders around the world. So let's take a look at this.
By the United States, Russia will also pull out of the landmark Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree making the suspension of the Cold War-era arms treaty official. Now, it was set to expire in less than 6 months. The Trump administration announced the formal suspension of the treaty in February after it accused the Russian government of non-compliance. Russia denies the breaches, but the fallout is sparking fears of a possible repeat of past missile crisis. For more, we turn to Daniel McAdams, Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute. Thanks for joining us, Daniel.
Thanks, Scotty.
Okay, so now that Russia will officially pull out of the INF Treaty, have we reached a point of no return when it comes to weapons control between Russia and the United States?
Well, I don't think that we necessarily have. It's never over until it's over. However, it looks relatively grim right now, and I think the question is why now all of a sudden the U.S. has been following what it claims are the Russian creation of these SSC-8 missiles, which they claim are in violation of the treaty. They've been following it for 10 or 15 years of development. Why have they not raised the issue until now? I think it's a pretext. This is a pretext for something that the U.S. has wanted to do all along. Both sides claim that there are violations. To me, that seems like a reasonable reason to sit down at the table and see if you can split the difference. But unfortunately, it doesn't appear that that's what was on the agenda for the U.S. side.
Well, Daniel, I have to look at the timing of this, as we've just come off of a weekend in Vietnam where there was not a treaty reached between North Korea and the United States to denuclearize. Do you think that has anything to do with Russia today pulling out of this treaty, knowing that there was not one confirmed between the United States and North Korea last week?
Well, I think it has something to do with Hurricane Bolton. You know, this is the guy who hates international treaties with the passion he hates. He doesn't want the U.S. to be bound by any sort of agreements, but of course he likes other countries to be bound by agreements. I think it's pretty well reported now that Bolton played a big hand in the blow-up of the North Korea talks, throwing additional things on the table, which caused Kim to walk away. Certainly, he's very involved in destroying the INF Treaty between the U.S. and Russia. So unfortunately, it's the neocons that are around President Trump. We've heard recently that Bolton is now getting the daily intel briefings, and he's giving the highlights to Trump. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Well, last week, right before they did go into that meeting, President Trump...
And we've been talking quite a bit about Bolton, I feel, in the past couple of weeks. And, you know, he's just one of the most glaring examples of how Donald Trump is not draining the swamp. He had campaigned on building a wall, draining the swamp, you know, America first. He's kind of been doing the America first part. And he is slowly piecing together the wall, which, by the way, I don't think is any serious deterrent for illegal immigrants. They need more, as I've said, they need more presence. They need Border Patrol and Army stationed at the border. That's how you limit illegal immigration. Well, also by cutting off the welfare to illegal immigrants. That alone would stem the tide. But as far as draining the swamp, Trump has not done anything. He's been filling the swamp. And one of the most famous snippets from the debates was what he said to Clinton.
Donald Trump taking Hillary Clinton to task over her email scandal, attacking her honesty and her character in last night's debate.
Here to react, Fox News contributor Pete Hegseth.
I don't need your reaction, Fox News. I just need the snippet.
After getting the subpoena, you delete 33,000 emails, and then you acid wash them, or bleach them, as you would say, a very expensive process. So we're going to get a special prosecutor, and we're going to look into it, because you know what? People have been, their lives have been destroyed for doing 1/5 of what you've done, and it's a disgrace. And honestly, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Secretary Clinton, I want to follow up on that. I'm going to let you talk about email.
Because everything he just said is absolutely false, but I'm not surprised.
Really?
In the first debate,
and the audience needs to calm down here.
And the thing about that, we're diverting again, but the thing about that, she said it's all fake. She never deleted the emails. But FBI and aide destroyed 2 of Clinton's phones by breaking them in half or hitting them with a hammer. So not only did she delete a bunch of emails that she put on her private server where foreign entities could hack in there and take that information, which was basically what the theory is that was like a private marketplace, a secret marketplace for information. She would put some information on this private server. Foreign actors would hack into it. And then all of a sudden the Clinton Foundation gets some donations. So that's how that scheme was running. So yeah, why would you need someone to break your phones with a hammer? An aide to former President Bill Clinton destroyed 2 of Hillary Clinton's phones by using physical force, according to documents released by the FBI on Friday. So, you know, you think this aide would do that on her or his or her own volition? No, that's something that... Listen, man, Clinton's a war criminal, just like a lot of, just like mostly all the presidents, pretty much all the presidents and cabinet members who have been complicit in terrorist actions and in illegal wars. But that's just to show that there is some, there's some evidence. There's a lot of evidence to the wrongdoings of Hillary Clinton. The thing is that her supporters are kind of brainwashed into supporting her. But I think more and more Democrats are recognizing how toxic Hillary Clinton is, and if she was president, she would be probably an even worse president. We'd probably be at have another serious war going on, aside from the however many other foreign theaters we have troops in.
It would be impossible to be fact-checking Donald all the time. I'd never get to talk about anything I want to do and how we're going to really make lives better for people. So once again, go to HillaryClinton.com. We have literally Trump. You can fact check him in real time. Last time at the first debate,
you can fact check him in real time.
We'll have millions more fact checking because it is. It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
That's like one of the most epic comebacks. Man, those debates were hilarious. But again, Trump has never drained the swamp. He basically, from the cabinet that he had, he basically eliminated most of the people, like a lot of his advisors and stuff, like Bannon and Manafort and whatever, and he casted them to the side, and then he just started bringing in neocons like John Bolton and others, which are just continuing the same foreign policy that the United States has been following for decades, since the Cold War, or even before the Cold War.
Did tweet out his optimism, saying, however, he was looking forward to help from a financial standpoint in making sure that North Korea had a successful future from China, Russia, South Korea, Japan. So do you think he would assume that the same thing would also be necessary in regards to a nuclear solution, hence why possibly Russia pulling out of this now and creating a deal that might be universal across several different countries might be a good thing that could come out of this situation?
Well, a multilateral approach is probably necessary. The pretext for the U.S. pulling out probably is China. The U.S. has been pretty aggressive in the South China Sea. They want the ability to have missiles in this range of 500 to 5,000 kilometers, which they've been prohibited from having since the INF Treaty back in the 80s. So that's probably the real reason the U.S. wants out of it. So why not just try to expand talks, include China, see if you can make a deal this way? I think, again, we go back to Hurricane Bolton on that one.
Well, that's the question right now, is Hurricane Bolton and what role he does play. But another question is, where does this put the position of many other European countries? It can't be good to be centered between Russia and the United States right now.
That's a key issue, Scotty. And, the German Foreign Minister Maas actually went to Moscow. He met with his Russian counterpart Lavrov to see what they could do to try to solve this. The last thing the Europeans want is to be a battleground in a U.S.-Russia conflict. The EU Foreign Policy Director Mogherini is also on record saying she's very concerned about the end of the INF Treaty. She talks about Europe having so much to lose if it's over. So the Europeans, maybe this may be the spur that lets the Europeans move to a more independent foreign policy.
Well, Daniel, technology is always an issue. One of the reasons why I think we're even talking about this, because they're trying to update where everybody stands at the nuclear capabilities. There are reports that one of the reasons why the U.S. wanted to pull out of the treaty was because China was starting to gain an advantage as they developed their missile technology. Is this a legitimate concern and a reason why both Russia and the U.S. would like to see China agree in this new capability and be brought into some form of a nuclear treaty as well?
Well, it also depends on what your foreign policy is. And unfortunately, the U.S. has a foreign policy of world domination. And when you have that, you have to always have the absolute upper hand. It's great if you're in the military-industrial complex. And I'm sure they're wringing their hands with glee over the possibility of making a whole new range of missiles that will make billions and trillions of dollars. So that certainly is a case. If the China issue, again, is an issue to be discussed, and have a trilateral discussion about it rather than simply pulling out. Maybe it'll be salvaged, but again, go back to Bolton. With Bolton in there, I think it's pretty unlikely.
Okay, Dan, I cannot let you go without bringing you in and ask you a question of something that's just come into the headlines here in the past few hours. It's being reported that Senator Rand Paul is going to oppose President Donald Trump's national emergency declaration, calling them extra constitutional powers. Why is this happening, as it's going to cause him to actually vote not only against the president, but against the Republicans, and be able to actually topple this to where the president will not be able to have his executive order to build his wall? What is the thinking behind this?
Well, certainly Congress has fallen down on its obligations as a co-equal branch of government for decades, allowing the president to rule as a dictator. And it's not just about Trump. Certainly Obama did the same thing, Bush, and president after president before him, ruling by executive order. We go around the world telling everyone else what kind of democracy they should have, yet our Constitution, of course, is being flattened by these presidents who rule by decree. So certainly if you're interested in our constitutional form of government, a separation of powers, then it's a good move to smack down the president sometimes when he exceeds his constitutional authority.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much. I know this is going to be a continuing story, and I have a feeling we might even have you back on this week to continue this discussion. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, YouTube.
So I can understand why, the deal had to be broken off. But, as I stated, it probably could have been handled better. And the person at fault is John Bolton, who, is used to tackling problems with a hammer. So if as that somebody had said that in a video that we looked at before, he said that if the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem is going to look like a nail. So Bolton's idea of foreign policy is just strong arming different countries and threatening them, and that kind of stuff.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Weekly Report. Did Bolton blow North Korea? President Trump's second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un last week was criticized by both parties in Washington long before Air Force One even touched down in Hanoi. Washington's political class seemed terrified that the nearly 70-year state of war with North Korea might actually end. In the end, the only positive thing they could say about the meeting was that Trump apparently walked away with nothing to show for it. The location of the meeting, Hanoi, Vietnam, serves as a great example of what can be won in peace versus what is lost in war. After losing nearly 60,000 U.S. service members in an unnecessary war that took 1 million Vietnamese lives, the U.S. loss of the Vietnam War resulted not in a communist takeover of the Southeast Asia, but something very different. The domino theory failed because communism was destined to fail. Now we are close trading partners with an increasingly pro-market Vietnam. The result of trade and exchange versus war is a better life for all. Unfortunately for Washington, the real lesson of Vietnam has not been learned. That is why the Republicans, Democrats, and the entire mainstream media spoke as one against President Trump's decision to take a bold step and actually meet again one-on-one with one of our enemies to see if we can avoid nuclear conflict. One leading Democrat, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, attacked Trump for being with Kim because speaking to the North Korean gives him legitimacy. Does it make any sense that we should not even speak with our nuclear-armed adversaries because it gives them legitimacy? He'd rather have a nuclear war as long as Kim remains illegitimate. This is sadly the kind of thinking that prevails in Washington. The media reported that Trump walked away from the meeting before the scheduled signing ceremony and closing press event. The talks broke down, it was reported, because Kim demanded an end to all sanctions before any reduction in North Korea's nuclear arsenal. Washington sighed with relief and said altogether, better no deal than a bad deal. Meanwhile, the North Koreans held a rare press conference clarifying that they only asked for partial sanctions relief in exchange for dismantling one of their main nuclear facilities. Further, press reports began to surface that National Security Advisor John Bolton threw additional demands on the table, which led Kim to draw the meeting to an early close. Who's telling the truth? We likely won't know, but given Bolton's strong opposition to any kind of peace agreement with North Korea, it's hard to doubt that he had something to do with the blow-up of the summit. As the New York Times reported over the weekend, while Trump's advisors were shocked when he decided to meet with Kim face-to-face the first time for negotiations, John Bolton wasn't worried at all. As the Times wrote, Mr. Bolton told colleagues not to worry. The negotiations, he said, would collapse on their own, and so they did. Will Trump continue to allow his diplomatic efforts to be undermined by his own staff? Let's hope the president will ignore Washington, ignore the neocons, and continue work for peace with North Korea. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, and welcome to Face the Nation.
Yeah, so Ron Paul just basically argued what I was saying pretty much exactly last week in regards to Venezuela and foreign policy in general. You can see that in this clip, how the U.S. can resolve conflict with Venezuela. That's on my YouTube, youtube.com/TheMCFaceman. Make sure to subscribe to me and click the button for notifications so that you can keep up with all the videos if you're not watching live on Twitch every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is when the Sunday morning show airs every week. So Ron Paul was just reiterating the same points. Instead of strong-arming foreign countries, we should be offering them lucrative trade deals, win-win situations, not situations where we're getting the deficit, not situations like Obama made with China, where we're getting the raw end of the deal and sending all our business to China. We need to do deals with nations that benefit both of us. We need to create interdependent relationships with foreign powers so that the thought of eliminating us or taking down America is not even a thought. United States is already an integral part of the global economy. The U.S. dollar is still the preferred trading currency. English is the preferred language internationally when doing business. We're in a position to, continue being successful if we play our cards right. The thing is, there's so many snakes in government, so many criminals looking to get the easy money and looking to just, sell their souls to, reach whatever goals, whatever power and financial goals that they have.
We begin today with President Trump's National Security Advisor, Ambassador John Bolton. Good to have you here.
Glad to be with you.
We had different versions of the story as to why this summit failed to produce any results. Why was the president unable to negotiate a breakthrough?
Well, I don't consider the summit a failure. I consider it a success defined as the president protecting and advancing American national interest. There was extensive preparation for this meeting, extensive discussions between the president and Kim Jong-un, and the issue really was whether North Korea was prepared to accept what the president called the big deal, which is denuclearize entirely, under a definition the president handed to Kim Jong-un, and have the potential for an enormous economic future, or try and do something less than that, which was unacceptable to us. So the president held firm to his view. He deepened his relationship with Kim Jong-un. I don't view it as a failure at all when American national interests are protected.
But to be clear, North Korea still has not agreed to denuclearize as the U.S. defines it.
Not as we have defined it, although they have committed in public in prior regimes in North Korea 4 or 5 times in writing to denuclearize, and it's something
so that doesn't mean much to you.
We expect them to do if they reach an agreement with us.
Well, on the specifics, a senior State Department official spoke to reporters and said that what the North Koreans proposed specifically was about dismantling the 3-mile Yongbyon complex, which he defined as, quote, the totality of North Korea's plutonium reprocessing and uranium enrichment programs in exchange for lifting all sanctions except those on the weapons programs. Did the U.S. make a counteroffer?
Well, the counteroffer has been there from the beginning, from the very first summit back in Singapore, which is if North Korea commits to complete denuclearization, including its ballistic missile program and its chemical and biological weapons programs, the prospect of economic progress is there. The president.
But that's not what North Korea put on the table.
That's
they put
not
on
what they. That's
this
not,
narrow definition.
A very limited concession by the North Koreans involving the Yongbyon complex, which includes an aging nuclear reactor and some percentage of their uranium enrichment, plutonium reprocessing capabilities. In exchange, they wanted substantial relief from the sanctions. Now, one thing President Trump has said beginning in the 2016 campaign is that he's not going to make the mistakes of prior administrations and get into this action for action kind of arrangement, which
so
benefits
there was no counteroffer.
The North Koreans. Our counteroffer was where we have been, where the president has exercised his persuasive abilities on Kim Jong-un to take the big deal, and they weren't willing to do it.
But what made the president stake out this maximalist position? You've negotiated with the North Koreans before, going back to 2002. Did you see the same pattern playing out now?
I think the difference that President Trump has articulated to the North Koreans is the future for them once they make the strategic decision to denuclearize. What they've done before is promise to denuclearize, get economic benefits in return, and then renege on the deal. What the president was trying to get them to do was look at what was possible for them overall. And I think he remains optimistic that this is possible. Kim Jong-un himself said in our last meeting, you know, we're going to go through many stations before we achieve this deal. The meeting in Hanoi was one such station. So the president's ready to keep talking.
Are you expecting North Korea to come back with an offer?
I don't know what they're going to do. I think the president himself said that he expects they'll want to go back and reevaluate what happened. Certainly we will. We'll look at continuing the economic sanctions against North Korea, which brought them to the table in the first place. We'll see what happens next.
But in the meantime, North Korea can still produce nuclear fuel.
And they have been doing it. Yes, they have. That's exactly correct.
So they're a growing threat.
Well, I think our objective remains to find a way to get them to denuclearize. The president's trying this negotiation, but his objective has always been denuclearization.
Is the window for diplomacy about to close here? I mean, this seems like an open-ended timeline.
I wouldn't say it that way. Look, the president opened the door for North Korea and Singapore, and they didn't walk through. He kept the door open.
8 months ago.
He kept the door open during that 8-month period. He kept it open in Hanoi. The North Koreans can walk through it. It's really up to them. That's the diplomatic window.
When you were on this program last July, though, you said the plan was to dismantle North Korea's nuclear facilities and have it turn over its weapons of mass destruction within a year. Is that still a realistic timeline?
No, the question you asked then was operationally, how long would it take? There was some dispute within the U.S. government over a period of time. Once North Korea made the strategic decision to give up its weapons of mass destruction, ballistic missiles, how long would it take to conduct that dismantlement? And with a few exceptions, our judgment was we could finish it within a year once the process started.
So you still think it'll take a year to dismantle it, but you acknowledge they haven't even agreed to denuclearize.
No, they have not.
And there's no
exactly.
expiration date on this offer to continue to negotiate.
There's no expiration date. As I say, the president is fully prepared to keep negotiating at lower levels or to speak to Kim Jong-un again when
But aren't
it's
they a
appropriate.
growing threat if they can continue to develop nuclear fuel? Doesn't the leverage get reduced on our end?
I don't think the leverage gets reduced because I think we will keep the maximum pressure campaign in place. Even before the summit, we were looking at ways to tighten it up to stop.
I'm wondering how the interviewer is sounding like more of a hawk than John Bolton.
For example, the ship-to-ship transfers that the North Koreans are using to evade the sanctions, to talk to other countries to make sure they tighten up on North Korea. It was the sanctions that brought the North Koreans to the table. It's the sanctions they want relief from, and relief they can get if they denuclearize.
Before the president went to Hanoi, was the U.S. aware that North Korea would not allow anything beyond the Yongbyon complex in this second uranium enrichment site that the president nodded to in his press conference? Did you know that was not on the table?
Well, we don't know what's on the table from North Korea until it comes out of the mouth of Kim Jong-un, the chairman.
Well, that's what the diplomats are supposed to be laying the groundwork for, so the president doesn't walk away with a failure.
He didn't walk away with a failure. Unless you're prepared to say that it would be better to accept a bad deal than to walk away from no deal, to me, that's a success.
So you thought that nothing else was on the table. You were just testing the prospects by sending the president to Hanoi.
No. We honestly didn't know. I mean, it's not unusual in these circumstances to find that there are additional concessions that the other side might make. But we've tried to make it clear to them, again, the president has said this repeatedly, we're not going to make the mistakes of past administrations. We're not going to make the mistake that Obama made in the Iran nuclear deal. What we want is denuclearization broadly defined as the president himself laid out for Kim Jong-un in the paper that he gave him.
So, but you've tested this proposition now of what it's like to negotiate top down.
Well, we've had two meetings.
Commander-in-Chief to try to do this. It was a very different approach, but the success rate hasn't been anything more than in the past.
Well, the success rate in the past was 0. So that's not a hard bar to overcome. There's an argument that proceeding deductively rather than inductively makes a lot of sense. We've had 2 meetings. We'll see.
I gotta wonder, like, okay, does the interviewer, like, just trying to make John Bolton look like not as much of a hawk? Or, I mean, what kind of expectation does she have as far as, like, coming up with a nuclear deal with a hermit kingdom, literally called the Hermit Kingdom, isolated country, communist, run by an ideologue, someone who the North Korean people have to refer to as, like, their god? Okay, once they do denuclearize, he's Kim Jong-un is immediately a target, immediately a threat, immediately threatened by his own people and foreign governments, including the United States, that could easily just stage his death. That's why he doesn't want to give him up, because that's the only way he can keep on his insane show, pretending to be God, and continuing his family's legacy as the rulers of North Korea. it's gonna take. I mean, if they ever denuclearize, which I think the odds are not that great, to be honest. You know, I think Kim Jong-un is just riding it out till the next president. You know, just like, okay, you know, don't, you know, let's see if we can work things out, try to get these sanctions off, but, you know, we're still going to work on some things. Like they mentioned, like the interviewer mentioned in this video, that they're still producing uranium or still enriching uranium. So they might not necessarily be putting together the bomb, but, you know, they get at least the uranium ready that they can, you know, make a bomb from that.
What happens next?
But in the meantime, as we say, they can still produce nuclear fuel. And as you saw after the president left Hanoi, Kim Jong-un stayed there. I mean, he was walking around touring hotspots in Vietnam. He no longer looks like a pariah. Didn't he gain from this?
I don't think that's the president's view at all.
He sat across from the president almost as if an equal.
He did that in Singapore. The president's view is he gave nothing away.
But do you actually believe that?
The president's view is he gave nothing away. That's what matters, not my view. As I've said before, I guess I can't get people to listen, so I'll try it one more time. I'm the national security advisor. I'm not the national security decision maker.
Well, your views have been well documented in the past.
Usually by me. I mean, I've written a lot. I've written a lot in the past.
You've been skeptical for many years.
And as I've said, those views are out there. Anybody can read them. My job now is to help the president, give him his advice, give him my advice. He'll make the decisions.
And to be clear, the administration still is no longer advocating regime change.
The position of the administration is we want denuclearization of North Korea, and that's the objective we're pursuing.
And you still believe that Kim Jong-un can deliver on that?
I think he is the authoritative ruler of that country, and if he were to make the strategic decision to denuclearize, we think it would happen.
The president was asked about this American student, Otto Warmbier, who died tragically after being released after some brutal treatment in North Korean captivity. When was it that the president actually brought up his case to Kim Jong-un?
Well, that was in one of the meetings on the second day, I think. And look, the president in Hanoi. The president's
Is that the first time he brought it up?
No, I think it's been brought up before. I think it was brought up in Singapore. But the president's been very clear. He viewed what happened to Otto Warmbier as barbaric and unacceptable. And I think the best thing North Korea could do right now would be to come up with a full explanation of exactly what happened to him.
But it seemed to suggest that the president, since he said he took Kim Jong-un at his word, was willing to put aside these egregious human rights abuses and basically the killing of an American while in captivity.
Listen, I've heard the president talk about Otto Warmbier on any number of occasions in the Oval Office, and I know how strongly he feels about it. I have no doubt of that whatever.
Before I let you go, I want to ask you, the House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings has requested information about your personal security clearance. Is there anything you know of that would have raised a red flag, what he's looking for here?
Not at all. You know, someday I'll be a private citizen again, and I'd be delighted to take this nonsense on in detail. But as a White House official right now, threatened with subpoenas, with a lot of other things that's going on in Congress, I'll take guidance from the White House counsel's office and the Justice Department and just wait for the day when I'm a private citizen.
But counsel, the White House will respond to this.
They will respond to it. That's correct.
Ambassador Bolton, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Former U.S.
I
Army
don't know.
intelligence
I'm
whistleblower.
trying to figure out what the hell the deal is with that interviewer. Like, what does she want? What does she want? She wants to fucking get in there and topple another regime? I mean, the thing is, like the people in North Korea, like a lot of them are so fanatical. Like at least the inner circle of Kim Jong-un is full of fanatics that will just kill themselves for the chance to protect their dear leader. So I don't know, bro. So now we're talking about Chelsea Manning.
Chelsea Manning has been jailed for refusing to testify in front.
By the way, for those who don't know who Chelsea Manning is, just a quick rundown. So this is the person, Chelsea Elizabeth Manning, formerly Bradley Edward Manning, An American activist and whistleblower. She is a former United States Army soldier who was convicted by court-martial in July 2013 of violations of the Espionage Act and other offenses after disclosing to WikiLeaks nearly 750,000 classified or unclassified but sensitive military and diplomatic documents. So she worked with WikiLeaks to leak some information about human rights violations and war crimes, things like that. Basically, a lot of the crap that we did during the war on terror, which continues today, all the drone strikes, killing of civilians, things like that. So, but it's interesting. Like, why after leaking all this information do you decide to transition? So that was interesting. So, so she's back in the news. Let's see.
Of a grand jury in a case against the WikiLeaks co-founder, Julian Assange. Manning's lawyer says they'll appeal for her swift release.
This is an appealable order. Judge Hilton did find her in contempt in open court. Well, it was certainly a typical outcome for this kind of proceeding. As everybody knows, Chelsea has tremendous courage. Our primary concern at this...
So, I mean, there's a number of ways to look at it like this, because isn't that like such a stupendous coincidence? Like, hey, the probability of that, like, how rare is it to have a whistleblower? First of all, very rare. Second of all, having worked with WikiLeaks, rare. Having leaked it to WikiLeaks, that's rare enough. But then the person also goes under a sex change. That sounds like enough for 2 lifetimes of stress right there. You could look at it like, it's a genuine thing. You could look at it like, maybe with the way liberal politics are going in the United States, that, if transitioning makes you kind of like a protected minority, like, you know what I'm saying, like a politically protected minority, versus being a straight white man, maybe it was a strategic move. I don't know, or maybe having so much exposure and just instantly becoming infamous or famous, however way you want to look at it, that, figuring, hey, a lot of people hate me anyway, might as well embrace who I truly am. I guess it could have been a catalyst for Chelsea to become who she really is, I guess. So there's a number of ways to look at it, but it's just interesting. You would want to think, it doesn't happen all the time, so you would think, there's a correlation between the two of her leaking all this information and then immediately changing to a woman from a man. So, I think it's valid to question that a little bit.
Point is her health while she is confined.
Well, Chelsea Manning first came to fame in 2010 after handing over classified sensitive military data to WikiLeaks. She was sentenced to 35 years in prison and spent 7 of them there before being commuted by then President Obama. The whistleblower was aware she could be taken back into custody.
I have a history of having to deal with secrecy, and a lot of these secret proceedings, they tend to favor the government. They tend to allow things, nefarious goings on to happen. So I am in general opposition of this kind of proceeding taking place. I don't believe in the grand jury process. I don't believe in the secrecy of this. I have no problem explaining what happened. I've done it before. Why we should go through this in a secret, closed hearing with only the prosecutor, no lawyer.
This all stems from when Manning leaked more than 700,000 confidential documents and videos because she had profound questions about U.S. foreign policy. Here's some of what she revealed.
$20,000.
Veteran human rights campaigner Peter Tatchell says it's suspicious that the hearing was being conducted in secrecy.
What does the US government and judicial system have to hide? Why can't they conduct these hearings and these charges in open court? In this case, it's all being done in secret, which flies against the fundamental democratic judicial principle that justice should be open and transparent. And I think Chelsea Manning is quite right to shine a spotlight on the secrecy of the grand jury system and the way in which it is weighted towards the prosecution and against defendants. Julian Assange himself has been subject to secret grand jury hearings since 2010. He's never been allowed to know the charges against him or the evidence. He's not being given any kind of information whatsoever. And again, this is completely contrary to the basic fundamental principle of justice, that it should be open, transparent, and accountable.
So it's no surprise that I mean, the United States has been very anti-whistleblower, so, you know, as much as our government professes, you know, what freedoms we have, they don't like to be undermined. They don't like to be contradicted. And I understand that, you know, there's national security concerns with leaking information, but there's even bigger national security concerns when we're in perpetual war and, you know, basically giving a lot of people a reason to be angry at America and wanting to do harm to America. So it's a never-ending cycle that benefits the military-industrial complex, and that's why it continues.
Dan Cohen and the government's new case against Chelsea Manning, which broke this morning. All right, Dan, start us off. What's going on? What happened this morning?
All right, Rick. So Chelsea Manning was charged with criminal contempt and taken into custody after refusing to testify before a grand jury, which is investigating WikiLeaks, the infamous whistleblowing group. So according to one report, the grand jury was planning to question her about whether WikiLeaks editor-in-chief Julian Assange solicited her to release documents. She refused because the hearing is held in a secret court and argued that it's a violation of her First, Fourth, and Sixth Amendment rights. First Amendment being freedom of speech, Fourth Amendment being unlawful search and seizure, Sixth Amendment being right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. She'll be held in jail until she either agrees to testify or until the grand jury expires, which could be as long as 18 months. She released a statement just a few minutes ago saying she won't comply with this or any grand jury whatsoever. She said she's being punished for ethical objections to the grand jury system, and that the questions that she's supposed to answer pertain to disclosures from 9 years ago, which she already testified about publicly.
Extensively, she says.
Exactly. Yeah. She called the grand jury a secret process that she morally objects to, and that it's been used to entrap and persecute politically protected speech. She had also asked for home confinement rather than jail time because she faces potential health risks. Just back in October, she went through gender-affirming surgery. So, you know, we don't know what could happen to her in prison. I spoke to Alex Rubenstein, who's been covering her trial.
Wait a minute. What is gender-affirming surgery? Is that when they, Gender-affirming surgeries. Gender-affirming surgery changes a person's sexual characteristics to better reflect their gender identity. For some trans and gender diverse people. These surgeries are needed for their well-being. Surgeries can give relief from gender dysphoria, increase safety and comfort, and lessen or eliminate the need to take hormone therapies. Gender-affirming surgeries are often categorized as trans-masculine or trans-feminine. However, gender non-conforming people who do not identify with a binary gender of male or female may also need these surgeries. There are a number of gender-affirming surgeries available. These include surgeries for the genitals, chest, face, and other areas of the body. People may choose to get one or more surgeries depending on their needs and situation. Types of surgeries: chest contouring, top surgery that removes breast tissue and shapes the chest in a way that is seen as more masculine, so for female to men. Top surgery that enlarges the breasts, orchiectomy, lower surgery that removes the testicles. Vaginoplasty, lower surgery that removes the penis, scrotum, and testes and creates a vulva and vagina. Woo! You ever seen video of that? Oh my god. I've seen brief little videos. It's so nasty. Hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy. Lower surgery that removes the uterus, ovaries, and fallopian tubes. Clitoral release. Lower surgery to create a penis from the clitoris by cutting ligaments to release the clitoris and add length to the shaft. Metoidoplasty. Lower surgery to create a penis from the clitoris through clitoral release and grafting skin around the shaft to add girth. Sometimes the urethra is also lengthened to allow urination from the shaft, and a scrotum is created. Sometimes? So what? If you don't do that, where do you pee from? If not from your new penis. Surgery to create a penis. Phalloplasty. Scrotum and testes using graft tissue from elsewhere in the body like a forearm or thigh. Alright. So it could have been any one of those surgeries. There's also surgeries where a guy will shave down his brow. Since guys have more of a pronounced brow, shave down the brow, make it look more feminine, all kind of like facial reconstruction. So, okay, so she was doing that.
Do we have that? Oh, we don't have it.
We don't have it.
Apparently, we don't have it. Tell us what he said.
Alex said that this is basically that these grand jury that this could happen again and again, and it's been happening. She could be in prison for even longer after the 18 months, and it's been happening since 2010, 2011, when these prosecutions started happening, and it's.
Let me help us, right? Sure. Really, all of America, try to understand this whole WikiLeaks thing. So. She essentially divulged tons of secret information, right? Some of that made the U.S. military, U.S. officials, etc., look not so good, right? Others in there apparently were like, according to U.S. officials, like, why are you divulging all of our secrets, right? Is there a good argument for the fact that she may have violated the interest of our own government by just putting everything out there like that?
Well, I mean, I think you look at a video like what WikiLeaks titled Collateral Murder, which showed U.S. military from a helicopter gunning down civilians and a journalist in Iraq. So, I mean, does releasing this violate American national security interests? I mean, well...
So what she's saying is, look, I have stuff the American people should know. Exactly. If our military makes a mistake, we should at least know about it. It's not that they can't make mistakes. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But we should be more transparent. And that was the point that she was trying to make with the WikiLeaks divulgement, right?
Whistleblowing, exactly.
Yeah. And by the way, we have that bite. Do we want to play it now? Let's hear what Alex has to say.
All right. It seems like that she's being politically targeted. The government is aware of her political beliefs. She's been very vocal about her opposition to grand juries generally. Basically, they've been convening these grand juries targeting Assange since like 2011, and they could keep doing that. So even after this grand jury ends and she's released from jail, they could potentially try to subpoena her again if they're unable to extradite Assange before that time.
I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also...
And I'm not sure if you know about this or not, but under an executive order that Obama had passed called the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, the government can label anybody as a terrorist for, arbitrary means. So they could name Chelsea Manning a terrorist if they wanted to, and then send her to Guantanamo. Is Guantanamo still open? I thought they were trying to close it. Hold on a second. Bay. Guantanamo Bay. Is it open? Okay. The number of inmates is now 40. Oh, this guy. Trump signed an executive order to keep it open. Okay. Obama wanted to close it. Bipartisan opposition from Congress. Of course. Anyways.
Live every night at 7.
So this is still going on, which I think I haven't seen American media really cover this. It's only been like independent media. American media, not mainstream media. I've never seen any mention of this on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or anything, because this movement that's going on, the Yellow Vest movement, is a nonpartisan movement. You've got people of all different parties uniting against the oligarchy, man, the corporations that run their government and the government itself. That's what globalism is. It's giving all your power to these international corporations and banks, and then they end up running your lives. So a lot of people in Europe are sick of getting taxed to oblivion, and sick of their immigration policies. They've accepted a lot of refugees over the past few years, thousands and thousands of mostly men in military age, families too, but mostly men, and that has disrupted their society in different ways. In some countries, these refugees have caused rape epidemics and things like that. So the citizens in France and I forget where else. I think in Holland they did some of these. It's slowly spreading, and you can bet a Yellow Vest movement is going to come to America at some point. The thing is, we're so politically divided in America that it would be hard to do something like this, and that's the incentive for government and the people in power to keep Americans divided. If just the thought of a Trump supporter throws you into a fit of rage, or if just the thought of an AOC supporter throws you in a fit of rage, if you invest so much emotionally in this political theater, then you become more easily controlled. So So you get the picture. There's footage like this that's been uploaded to YouTube for like the past month or two. And I gotta wonder how many thousands of gallons of tear gas have the French government used so far. I mean, some people would say it's a civil war that's going on there. I mean, there are people dying, and getting shot in the face with rubber bullets, losing eyes, and man. I mean, if the same thing were to happen in the United States, it would get really crazy. I feel like we would just have like full blown riots. But I guess that's just the pessimist in me. All right, the final story here.
Not speaking publicly since posting bail, Jussie Smollett faces new serious legal trouble. A Chicago grand jury indicting the actor on 16 felony counts, saying he lied to police in 2 separate interviews about being the victim of a hate crime. Smollett's attorney just learning the news.
They have their ability to do whatever they're going to do, and we'll push back against it.
The 36-page indictment includes 16 felonies for lying to police. He told them he was beaten on this Chicago street corner by 2 men who yelled out, "This is MAGA country," poured a chemical on him, and left a noose around his neck.
Who the would make something like this up?
Bogus police reports cause real harm.
Chicago's top cop says the actor orchestrated the stunt for publicity. Investigators say he hired Abel and Ola Osundairo, seen here on security footage, to stage the attack. The brothers face no criminal charges.
In Cook County, most criminal cases don't go to trial, often resolved in a plea deal for a reduced sentence. But Smollett could also face federal charges after police say he mailed himself a death threat.
If convicted, Smollett could face up to 3 years for each criminal count. The actor, who police say desperately craved attention, now getting it for all the wrong reasons. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
I don't know how does someone who okay, maybe he's not the biggest actor, but how do you get yourself in such a position? Oh, he's actually a little older than he looks. 36, still young. He was in the Mighty Ducks. Okay, so he's been in some movies. Not a whole lot of movies, but he's been in some movies. He's done some shows. I mean, he's not doing bad for himself. He still had a job at on the Empire show until he got recently suspended or fired. Well, I think they're going to kill his character, I think I heard, right? Made some music. Come on, man. How do you build all this for yourself and then think that this is a good idea to stage this elaborate thing? Well, I had heard that I had heard that maybe some of the people of the Empire show had influenced him into doing this. hoax, Empire Writers. I don't know. What? Never. Okay, so they're not writing him off the show? I don't really care so much about this topic, which was why I haven't really looked into it. In any case, I mean, it seems kind of plausible, like, for someone to individually come up with this idea and then act it out. I don't know, man. I think it's totally plausible that somebody, like, convinced them and said, hey, man, this is going to take you to the next level of stardom, you know. Because imagine if no one, what if he never got caught lying, right? Let's say they were able to pin it on some two random white guys, right? Or, you know, let's say they couldn't find enough evidence to link it up with those two guys that he hired, right? Which supposedly he sent money to, like $3,000. So let's say that he never got caught lying. Like he would get, oh man, he would get all kinds of like movie offers. You know, he would definitely be like in Spike Lee's next movie, or you know. And speaking of Spike Lee, I just saw Black Klansman yesterday. I downloaded the torrent and I watched it. And I wasn't really expecting too much from it because, you know, I feel like Spike Lee's best movies were, you know, years ago. Like I don't really, his newer movies, like after a certain point, his movies were just kind of like, eh. I think the last good one, did he do the Hidden Fences one? I like that movie. I forget what movies he does, because other than Do the Right Thing, it just, he didn't do Fences. Who did Fences? The one with Denzel. I forget. Anyways, yeah, none of these movies really come to mind as great. Original Kings of Comedy, I think, was, from what I remember, was good. And of course, Malcolm X was good. Do the Right Thing was good. I don't know, man. I'm not that familiar with his filmography. I feel like he doesn't really make good movies anymore. Anyway, I say that because he recently got an Oscar or something, whatever the award is, for Black Klansman. And I just, having just watched it, I don't know, man. Like, it explores some interesting territory. It's about like this undercover black guy who infiltrates the KKK. He does this by, and this is kind of a spoiler, but he like talks to David Duke and like other KKK leaders over the phone. But then he sends Kylo Ren, that actor, I forget his name, but who's Jewish. So he sends a Jew in, and then he has to pretend to be the same person that's on the phone with them. So it just starts off with this kind of really convoluted. I mean, it's an interesting idea, but it's also very convoluted. Like, why wouldn't you just have the Jew run everything, like do the call, just to not, because you're putting people's lives at stake. I don't see most people willing to put their lives completely in the hands of someone else like that, where they gotta, try to match up what they're saying and all these. I mean, it's just. But overall, the movie, I feel, was just a huge, blatant propaganda piece. And there's a lot of good information that is brought up. Definitely, our society has not been good to black people. There's a lot of discrimination up and down, from the criminal justice system to public housing and, using welfare to basically break up the black family. You know, abortion has basically decimated millions of potential black people that could have been born. You know, the influence of and the promotion of gangster rap that, you know, contributed to a lot of things. The disproportionate policing and you know, basically the, you know, trying to come up in this economy that's run predominantly by one race, and, you know, in a country that was founded by one race. So it's good to acknowledge those things and understand the history, but in an objective way. I feel like this movie was just really like a, you know, I don't know, just like hate Whitey, hate Whitey production. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. It didn't really, it just, but narratively, it just didn't really have much substance for me. Like, it was just so blatantly like, you know. And then at the end, to kind of prove my point, they show clips of different things. They show like a clip of Trump and other news items. And, you know, like a little bit over halfway, I was getting a little bit bored. I was like, man, this isn't really that interesting. The guy who played the black police officer seems like a pretty good actor, though. And he sounds a lot like Denzel Washington. So I would expect him to play like a biopic of Denzel one day, which would be interesting. But yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but yeah, that was an uninteresting movie for me. Anyways, so this Jussie Smollett thing, like I was saying, had he not been caught, he would have been like the next big thing, the next big black actor. You know, he would have been in Black Panther 2 and stuff like that. And this, like I said before, like we covered in a previous episode, is not that uncommon. There's a lot of cases of people doing false accusations. A lot of times it's women doing false accusations. They tend to be more involved with the sneaky kind of crimes, like lying and stealing. Like, for example, shoplifting is a predominantly women-centered crime. I guess you could say, because they don't have like the physical proportions of men to do different things, like stick-up robberies. It's not nearly as common with women as it is with men. But these things definitely do happen, and it's messed up. This guy was successful. He was, dude, I would love to be in his shoes. You know, I mean, prior to this, I would have loved to be in his shoes, to have a sweet acting gig, to, you know, be making lots of money, still looking young and handsome and stuff like that. What the hell? How do people get into this kind of stuff? When I'm making money and I'm like doing well, I don't even want to think about politics. It's when I have the time and you know, the lack of things occupying my mind that I'm like, oh shit, man, all this stuff is going on right now. But I just don't get it. I don't get it, man. Like, what the hell do you want out of life to set up these fake hoaxes? Can't just chill on a beach, fucking enjoy your money, see the world? I don't know. So that's it for the show today. There was really not that much news, man. There was really not that much news. I might actually stream after lunch. I've been playing Assassin's Creed Origins again, trying to grind to unlock the DLC, Curse of the Pharaohs. So I'm trying to see, maybe I'll stream that, see how it goes. The thing is, Streamlabs is fucked up right now, and so I'm using regular OBS. So I have no function for like the chat pop-ups or the alert pop-ups. I don't have any of that. I gotta figure this out because Streamlabs, man, it constantly fucks up. I'm wondering if I should just stick to regular OBS and figure out how to input the different, I guess, widgets or whatever. So that's it for this week. If you like the show, give me a follow on Twitch if you're watching on Twitch. I have no idea if anybody's watching right now. I can't see a counter or anything on this. So I have no idea. So you can follow me on Twitch. You can go to youtube.com/TheMCFaceman. Throw me a sub there, please. Comment on the video. Like the videos. I post these streams on my YouTube, so you can catch them and comment there if you'd like. And also follow me on Twitter @TheMCFaceman. I'm there. And that's it. You guys have a great week.